Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a review of the Chieftain prototype. Chieftain prototype. Are you a sad person that you cannot have a tier 10 Chieftain because you don't do clan wars or perhaps can't do well enough, or maybe your clan isn't top tier and you just really want a Chieftain? Well, I got some good news for you. You can have the Walmart Chieftain. All right, there's a this is the budget, the everyman's Chieftain. You can also potentially, in the current event, get the dollar general Chieftain, which would be the medium T95 Chieftain. So I would stay away from the dollar general, although you could get it. This happens to be the Walmart, the everyman's Chieftain prototype. It sort of does some chieftain-y things-ish, mostly the turret idea, and I guess that's probably just about it, to be quite honest. It is a tier 9 British tank, British heavy tank, and it is available in the Waffentrager event. Let's talk about how you get it before we get into the whole review itself. All right, let's take a look at how do you get this thing. I'm not going to break down the event. It's been going on for a while. We're just going to talk about how you get the Chieftain. That is through the Engineer's Gate. So you got the website here, Engineer's Gate. If you get the Engineer's keys to open the gate, every time you open the gate, it's basically a gift box idea. It just happens to be a gate. You're going to get one of these things, faux show. That's 100%. That's all these guys, right? So one of these things every time. All right, plus 100 gold, by the way, plus 100 gold. You have a 5% chance of getting a style. You have a 2.4% chance of getting a tank, a premium. Here they are, the Chieftain Proto. That's the one you're thinking about wanting because you're looking at the review. The KV4 KTTS, which is a premium Russian TD, very strange tank. Kind of like a T28 HTC. It's got a really wide field of regard. There's then a laundry list of older ones. There's the Chieftain T95 right there. All right, so that's also kind of new. I'm not really sure why that's not over here as kind of a WoW-y tank, because I don't think it's... I suppose these two just haven't been released, so these have all been released in some way, so that's probably why it's there. But there's your dollar general Chieftain over there. It happens to be a medium. Or a 2.5% chance to get 10 rental battles in the WT100 to play in randoms. One thing I want to bring up right here that's very important for everybody, and I've got this thing cut off like a complete Muppet here. Let me see if I can get this. No, of course not. It's not going to do that. Hold on. What the? Oh boy, we've lost control. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There will be a special guaranteed vehicle counter in the game client. Each time you get a premium tank, the counter is reset and the countdown to the next vehicle starts over. That being said, you will get a tank on the 50th try every time. Unless you own all the tanks. Unless you own all the tanks. Or you get one, you happen to get one earlier. So you get one on your 10th gate. You have 50 keys and you get one on the 10th. All right, that resets the counter. In another 50, you'll get a tank, guaranteed, unless you have all the tanks. So that being said, most people coming into this event will, not most people, the most tanks people coming into this event could have, the most they could have, is all of them except for the KTTS and the Chieftain prototype. So if you bought 50 keys or got 50 keys to the event, you're guaranteed to get one of those two. If you had every one of the others, although there's not a whole lot of T95 Chieftains out there. So it will depend on what's in your garage. Otherwise, you're going to get one of the many premiums that are available for this event. Last thing though, this is very important. If you happen to roll a tank you already have, you will get compensation. Except if it's the 50th guaranteed mechanic, it gets turned off. Which is to say, if you have all of the premiums in this event, there is no more 50th guaranteed tank mechanic. You may hit randomly a tank and get compensation, the 2.5% or whatever it is for a premium. But you will not get the automatic. So if you go, ooh, I have every tank in this event, which would be difficult unless you already bought a bunch of keys. But say you bought 100 keys. Let's say you bought 50 keys. And you got both tanks for whatever reason. You got the KTTS and then you hit the prototype. You're like, ooh, I've got all the tanks in this event. So now I'm going to buy some more keys because I know on the 50th one I'll get an automatic tier 8 compensation. Doesn't work that way. All right, just a fair warning to you right there. Back to the review. It is a heavy tank, as I said, a tier 9. You'll see that I've got a good crew in it. 3 skills, working on the 4th skill. I am working on the field mods, although I'm only to the first one right there. So I've only played about 10 battles in this thing. You can see equipment-wise, I've got a fairly standard loadout. I've got vents, an IA, and a rammer. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And I'm running regular kits. I don't have any other special stuff. I am running 10 APCR gold rounds on this. All right. So this is obviously a prototype version of the Chieftain tank itself right there. We'll take a look at a comparison really quickly. I chose the Conqueror. That's a tier 9 tech tree tank. Concept 1B, which is the class of the class. That's the best tier 9 heavy tank out there. And then the T95 FV4201. That's the tier 10, just for giggles. Kind of look how it compares. Obviously, that's a different tier, so it's an apples oranges thing to some extent. 400 Alpha, all the tier 10 stuff is going to be slightly better. Just bear with that. The average penetration is good at 262. In fact, it's better than the Concept and the Conqueror. Not by much, but by a few. The rate of fire, though, is a little bit slower. This is where this tank loses out a bit to the Conqueror and the Concept 1B. You can see that it's minus 10 gun depression, which is nice, the same as the rest of these. Like, there it is, 11.51, a full second or more than the other tanks that we're looking at right here. 0.35 is pretty bad on the Dispersion. A lot of people are saying it's derpy. I don't know. The Concept 1B is 0.36, and it seems to not care too much. There is a long aim time. We'll talk about that in a second. That does hurt it. And then there's some bloom issues with it. So overall, it's a bit derpy. I would not say it's massively derpy. It's just the combination of all those little things together makes it a little bit less accurate than some of these other tanks here. There's the DPM kind of suffering at 2,000, a full 200 less than the other guys at tier 9, and that's one thing that does hurt it a bit, and a bunch less than the tier 10, obviously. Here is the aim time. 2.59 is quite a bit. It's significantly more than the rest, although the Concept 1B comes in at 2.21 with a slightly worse dispersion, and it does better in the game. You know what I mean? So you can't hang your hat completely on those kinds of stats. We're looking at 1,800 hit points, which is good, the same as the rest of these. I think this Conqueror I must have left a field mod or something on that, because 1970 is a weird amount. We've got turret armor. Right, this is where this guy shines. We're talking about 350 turret armor. It's the same thing as the T95 at tier 10, but the difference between the two is there are some weak spots on this thing. It's got some weird angles and shapes. We'll talk about that when we take a look at the armor right there. It has a decent speed at 40. Drop a turbo on, becomes more sprightly. So it's faster than the Conqueror. Slightly less fast as the Concept 1B in there as well. And who cares about concealment? The view range suffers a little bit. It's at 390, and these other tanks are at 400. So that's a little bit painful for a tier 9 right there, going against those guys. So what do we have here? We have a pretty nice hold-down tank. I did not mention the hull armor. It's awful at 80, so let's not forget to talk about that. We'll look at what that looks like in tanks.gg here in just a minute, or Tomato, or whatever the one is that's got the armor stuff on it. That does hurt it for when it is pushed out of its hold down position. It has a really hard time doing some heavy tank stuff with the hull. None of these tanks are particularly amazing at the hull, but holy cow, we're still at 70 more. That's 50 more in the Concept 1B. So you get those occasional bounces and some angling and some messing around. This guy, not so much. It's a bit painful when it gets out in the open and people start just lull pinning right through the hull of this thing. But the 350 turret is quite nice in certain situations. We'll show that in a replay. Let's take a look at that armor here. See what that looks like. Tanks.gg. All right. Here it is. I mean, you're looking at this nice turret. There's just a lot of thickness on the turret. There's a little bit, if we go to the visual model, if you look around the edges here, it can get a little bit less. There's, also right underneath right here at the turret ring can get a little bit less. Then you get down onto the hull and it's quite bad. It is decently angled, so that will add some relative thickness. Effective armor 207 is okay. Down low here, though, and you can see that lower plate's quite large. It's only in the 160, 170, so things like and 120 at this angle. So things like an IS-6 with a 175 pen are just going to hi-yah right through the bottom of your tier 9 hole with virtually zero chance of bouncing unless you put some serious goofy angle on it or something. So there's just these weird shapes. There's also this flat piece. If they start to look at you from this angle, it's just a weird shape. There's not the same thing over here. Let's take a quick look here at the visual model just so you can see what we're talking about. That flat piece right there. All right, so straight on, it's quite strong. Now, it does have this relatively large, although it's not an American giant hat tumor cupola thing, it is larger than, say, a Soviet kind of hatch, and it's certainly larger than anything that the Tier 10 has on right there. So, and then we've got these spots here, which it doesn't really have a matlet. It's just kind of peeking through, and it just seems a little bit, it's showing the same, but I think it's actually maybe just a little bit less in there underneath. But then you get down to here, and we get this little flat spot. This one's hard to see, but there's an actual flat spot right here where the hatch is. And while that is a small spot, that's 158 right there. Although you don't have to you go a little lower and you still don't have too much in terms of armor at 189. But if he's playing whole games and that's little bottom parts poking out, you do have a nice little shot right there. And obviously the hatch is a deal. I did get my hatch hit quite a bit right there. So that is the armor model. Good, but not perfect, and does require a little bit of care, but you can do some pretty good bouncing with the hole on this thing. Well, how's it doing and how did I do? It's doing pretty well, guys. It is a low sample size relatively at 15,000 games played in the last 60 days. It just came out, so in the last week or two that thing's been out. But it is in the top 5 in win rate. It is top 5 DPG, frags, damage ratio. I mean, it's just kill of death drops a little bit to the mill, and survival, it's pretty far down here. Now, survival is interesting because its armor just doesn't really hold up, especially the hole. So at some point, more than likely, in most games, you're going to be forced out of your lovely hole down spot that you love going to and going to have to do something else, and that kind of speaks to its survival being a little lower than some of these other heavies that have a better hole coming. I'm not saying it's all the hole, but that has, you know, it's the whole tank, not the hole. The whole, anyway. The whole, it's a whole picture, all right? Interesting that the M451 has crept up into the second spot right there, but it is doing quite well. All right, so it's a new tank. People don't know how to play it very much. Early adopters tend to be more experienced / better players, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of things going in there. We'll have to wait 6 months to a year to see where it really sits, but I'm betting it's a top 10 easily. Tier 9 tank, easily a top 10. One thing to add in before we get into how I did or I'm doing so far is it does earn bonds, it makes more credits, and it makes more experience. So it is a Tier 9, a proper Tier 9 premium heavy tank. Bonds, experience, credits, you got to love it, all right? And free crew, obviously. You can put any crew that you want in there. It does have a commander, gunner, driver, loader. The commander, I believe, is your radio operator. Let me just double check that. Could be wrong. I am wrong. Where does the radio operator live? We don't know. Why would we know? Some people would know this to begin with. Uh-oh. By process of elimination, the radio operator is the loader. Naturally, it would be the last person. Naturally, it would be the absolute last person. All right, so your radio operator lives on the loader. There you go. There you go. And that's okay because there's only a couple loader skills and only one really radio operator skill that are worth anything in the game. How am I doing so far? I'm only at 44%. We've only played 9 battles, though. Pretty low on the experience at 836 and low on the damage at 1,771. Any numbers that jump out? My hits are lower than I would like. It speaks a little bit to the derpiness. We'll look at my numbers and my setup in just a second, what it gets me. Armor use is okay at 0.45. That speaks to a turret kind of situation where you've got a good turret but not much else. Situational armor is what that tells us right there. And I had a 4,000 damage game. For my setup then, what it's getting us, we get down to a 0.32 dispersion by using the IA and vents and brothers in arms and the commander bonus, etc. I think that's the only things that are helping. So you could do a few more things, maybe run some better equipment, the improved or the bounty stuff. You could bring that dispersion down a little bit. You could mess with field mods to do some things for gun handling in general as well. Aim time only comes down to 2.47. My DPM got up to 2,433, which is okay. And that's pretty much all the big things right there. So other considerations for equipment would be turbo. I know a lot of people are using the turbo, so you could put a turbo on this thing. Vert stab is certainly a player if you wanted to improve some of the gun handling in terms of while you're turning the turret and driving the tank and all that good stuff. Maybe hardening, I don't know. You really don't want to get hit very much in this thing, so maybe that's not a great idea right there. So but I think the turbocharger and the vert stab are probably the two biggest things that are possibilities right there. All right, last thing before we get into a couple gameplay examples is we've got 310 on the APCR, so the gold round or special round is APCR. 310 is not bad for APCR, to be quite honest, especially at tier 9. That's close to handling most things, but some of the more heavily armored stuff, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to be hunting around for weak spots. If you look at that and think of going after another Chieftain prototype and you consider the 350 turret, now we're starting to look for those little spots I talked about, or the potential for getting into the side and things like that. Ooh, that reminds me, I did want to show you guys one other thing that's really important on the armor setup. Just reminded me as I was talking about that, one thing to watch out for while you're driving this thing, maybe you're coming up and taking shots, is look at the green on the side of the hull right there. So if the tank is coming up over a ridge, you know, say you're coming up over the ridge and you're kind of doing the hold down thing, shooting like that, and you show them that side right there. All right, you're talking a nice green shot. If you side scrape, you're giving them that little side cheek right there. So even right here, it's not really that thick, right? You can still, even straight on, you can get into some kind of auto bounce things, but right in that little area right there, much less armor than the angled top piece or the turret, right? So watch out for that dude right there. I got shot there and shot them a lot as they're coming up over ridges and things like that. All right, let's take a look at some gameplay. All right, the first game is here on Himmel Siegfried Leindorf. I am top tier. Got 8s and 9s. Spawned into the north. I'm going to come down here into the little square area around the church and start to look for shots on these guys. There's going to be a whole lot of back and forth with people here. Not too bad on the setup for where my team has gone. We got some lights out in the field. That's okay. Not too many guys camping back there. The super personing sitting back on the hill, I don't know about that. The only problem, one thing I don't really like is we don't have anybody over here on the east side. Pretty typical though, actually, of this particular map. So going there looking for shots. You know, the soft hole right there, if somebody does come around the corner and shoot me, and that did happen to me in other games with this thing on this map. I have at least 1 or 2 more games with this tank. It's a nice spot here to be kind of hold down, but in that open spot, that's a great example of where they're just going to come around the corner and pen you. At the end of this game, you're going to see a Cobra. The enemy Cobra just has a freaking heyday with my hull. So we're sort of looking around. Notice it is relatively sluggish in terms of its hull transition, its hull spinning and whatnot. There we go. So we put a shot on him. We're thinking about maybe try a little side scrape here. Let's see what happens. No, he backs out. Then we'll do it. See what happens. Nope, nobody there to test out the side scraping capability. It is, as I noted with the armor layout, of questionable use. It does limit the capability of people to shoot your lower hull when you side scrape. Even if the tank's a bad side scraper, you do minimize the amount of tank that's coming around the corner. So it's not a bad tactic overall. Just have to be realistic about whether you're going to bounce anything or not. Come back around here and look. I felt it to be fairly comfortable. I think the turbo may be the way to go, and I'll probably try that out for the next 10 battles or so. See how that goes, because you just notice how long it takes to spin around. It's very sluggish in terms of that. So now if I can come up here in this nice little spot, miss that shot, I can kind of hide my lower hull from this 50 TP. Just think about trying to snipe his hatches if he went into that little notch, but he's not dumb enough to do that. And we got an LHMTB that just ran in behind me. You can see he's raging back in behind there. I don't really know why he's doing that. There's no artillery. It's very interesting, but whatever. He's having a good time, I guess. It is a fairly low slung tank, which is interesting for positions like this with rubble piles that may be a little higher than the gun, or a little higher than is comfortable to use the gun. You know, if the hull's higher, then of course the enemy tank can get to your hull. So this actually works out really nicely right here. I'm able to just kind of thump that shot. It's hard to miss from that range. He's sort of rocking back and forth, seeing if he wants to take that shot. I don't know what this guy's doing, to be honest. I guess he's just trying to get a nice shot. I'll bet exactly what's going on here is that he's trying to figure out where to shoot this new tank, right? You see he's kind of looking around, trying to figure out, all right, where's a weak spot on this thing? And since I was presenting pretty much just my turret, it worked out nicely for me. Oh, just got away. And down he goes. So we got 1,600 damage. Generally, from this first game, it felt like a pretty comfortable tank. There weren't a lot of weird vices to it. Hull down, it was quite nice. You did have to watch out about the hull. I think that's the big issue, obviously, with this thing, is a very thin hull for a heavy. But if you're able to work hull down stuff, see, there you go, you just right through it, no problem. I'm really surprised you got that shot. I'm just going to ignore that dude and try to start working on this one. Got a friend with me. He shoots the 112. He bounces the 112, right? Thumps me and bounces the 112. I'm just going to sort of ignore this guy. Now he's taking hits from multiple people. We're wrapping around these guys. Let's see if I can get around behind him and get a shot on him. There we go. Into the side of the turret. Tiger 2 actually shoots me, but looks like I just get a crit off of him. We're really just kind of bullying these guys now. We'll come in here and put a shot onto his. Tried for his lower plate. Looks like I might have just gone through the upper plate, but I got a pretty good amount of pin at 310, that range, slightly looked down. All right, this is where it gets pretty funny. The Cobra, you can see his markers way out there in the field, so I'm going to come around here and start looking for shots. It's feeling like clean up on aisle 2, right? We're just going to get in and get damage on him. Oh, whoa, whoa, what? Twice? 3 times. 4 times. Just... Now, if you will notice, down over here, the little shield icon, what does that number say? 0. I bounced 0. That's awesome. It got better, obviously, at 0.45 overall for 9 battles. I was bouncing some stuff. If I got into a good position for its hull, it worked out. But in a game like this where I presented the hull nicely to several tanks, they just shredded it. You know, and the Cobra just had a heyday. Blapping. All 3 of his shots hit, by the way. You don't see the other one. There it is, yep. So he did 595, 212, and 234, so I'm assuming the 595 pinned. There you have it. Let's look at one other game. All right, second game is on Himmelsdorf. I'm going to come up here to a well-known hold-down position, and I just want to check out how this turret's going to do. Let's see. Now I'm fighting another Chieftain prototype, so unfortunate right there. I got up on that little rock because I was going to be able to get into his lower plate, but I didn't quite get there. Thank goodness he didn't actually shoot into my lower hull, because as I went up on that rock, it probably presented it for him. But he did bounce off the turret. And all of a sudden, I'm at 850 bounce right here, right? Now I'm trying to get into that little side piece. I thought I was. I should have, because that was actually a pretty good angle. So right underneath that turret, that was just a mistake on my part. It might have been that I didn't know about that spot until after this game, because I was looking into it a little bit, trying to figure out how I would do this. Take one of these things on. I think this game was kind of the impetus for that. What you do have to be careful is, he sort of looked down, and I'm presenting my hatch pretty well here for him. I'm just not going to pin this, right? I'm looking for a green spot, but it ain't there. That's just kind of a useless shot. So we're going to move out of here, get a bit of a different angle. Let's see if we can start working on the CC-67, which has a pretty good turret as well. But 310's probably enough to handle some of the flat plate side of this thing. Go over there. There we go. Yep, worked out. Nice. We'll back out. Like I was saying, though, when you pull up and you're waiting for that aim time, because its aim time is quite long and the bloom is pretty decent, you're giving them a long time to aim in on your hatch. So now we're up to 1,140 bounced, and I would imagine they're definitely going after my hatch. Do we have any? Yeah, there's a couple kind of on the turret right there, and they may have been going after it and just bouncing off of it. So far so good. I haven't eaten one on the hatch. This guy, though, he's definitely looking at it. It's like, all right, if this guy comes up, slows down enough, or maybe I can snap one off on his hatch. That was trying to go after that little side section right there. The 5120 loses his mind. Alright, so we got to be careful here, though, because as I turn my turret sideways, I'm going to start flat plating. The good news is I'm not turning it left, so I'm not presenting that flat spot, but I am flat plating the rest of the turret a little bit by coming up. Good news is he keeps coming at me, so we'll just let him do that. There's that long reload. You know, the DPM just isn't amazing. If you think of like a Tornbogen or some of these other hold-down long reload tanks, it's kind of like that in terms of how long you have to wait for the next shot, and you'll see opportunities go by because you just can't quite get reloaded in time. Probably the left side would have been a better chance, or a better choice right there. Spamming all my gold at this dude. I think I'm going to switch over. No, I'm actually stick with that one. Another bounce. So he's on the back slope just a little bit. Back out. We're at 2,000 damage, got 1,880. And I just wanted to show you guys this one because it's kind of the whole turret games. I thought about going after the hatch. There you go. He's definitely going after the hatch again right there. I backed up just in time. A bounce there. Now they're shooting HE. This is how you know you frustrated people. They start to shoot HE. I thought this is where he goes. The Chieftain's going to go crazy here in just a minute. And oh, a bounce. So nice angle there. Chieftain's going to go crazy and push in. We end up losing this battle. We're doing okay right now. Probably would have done worse if that Chieftain didn't do what he's about to do. I think he thought he could push in and close out, and the rest of his team would push in with him. That is not what happened right here. Now we're starting to bleed, starting to lose. That's kind of the problem with a position like this. It's great if guys keep poking out and giving you opportunities. There you go. But 53 TP hits me, and there goes the Chieftain. It's great if people keep poking out and giving you opportunities, but if the team is slowly losing elsewhere and you're not being any more dynamic and sitting in a hold down position right here, sometimes that doesn't help much. That was useful though. I felt like maybe we were making a little bit of a comeback here. We'll come up here and I'll shut this guy down after he HEs me. So everything went pretty well, but now I'm out of APCR. That is a bit of a bummer. We bounced 1,880. We come in here and miss a shot on the T-49, unfortunately. I should have waited for that to zoom in the whole way. Got a bad habit of doing that. Got to work on that one. He did get tracked, so he wasn't going to get away. Not very quickly anyway, so I did have a few more seconds to wait for that to zoom in completely. Renegade's kind of hanging out around here. I come back up. I'm going to go up here and see if I can work on this Chieftain. The problem is he's now in that new position on the north side of the castle, which is a low spot, and now he can go hold down to me. So I want to be very careful about how I try to take this guy on. Maybe if I'd have pushed in right here and mixed it up, especially once the standard B. I think as I look at this now, I haven't looked at this since I had the game, probably should have pushed in and tried to get the guys to come with me, because we're really starting to have a problem down below, and they kind of glom in there and take out our low hit point mediums, and we're still futzing around up top. So maybe an over carefulness on my part here. I'm going to try to go for the hatch, but he's back slope, trying to avoid any return fire. He's kind of staring at me. Down goes the there goes the T-54, the CC-67, and the Barask, and all of a sudden we're really in big trouble. So I think if I had this to do again, I probably would have pushed in and tried to take on these guys and maybe entice the Charlemagne and the Progetto to come around. But they were both low hit points, so I don't know. And now they're back here, so not really sure how that would have gone. Might have been a better idea than what happened here. I'm a little bit worried these guys are going to see us all bail out and come in behind us. Progetto goes back towards the castle, so I'm going to accept that he can maybe hold them for potato. I'm going to come over here and see if we can start putting some damage on these guys, and this is just not going to happen, really. Try to go into the upper hole, and I was moving the pipper around. The dispersion was large. The 263 is going to end up killing me. Not a particularly good player either. I wish I'd have been ready for that guy right there. We are going to get a shot on him, though. Works out. 263 is moving, so I don't eat that shot. But there goes our CC Mark II right there. He's done. Renegade does me a solid, comes around the corner. Nice depression. There's that -10. We'll just wait for him to show up. Shoot him right in the side. We've got 2,280 bounce, 3,706 damage done. This is actually pretty funny. Try to come in here and get a shot on this guy. Holy cow. What is the elevation on that gun? That is absolutely amazing. I mean, he just looks up and slaps me, and it looks like... Now, I was hanging off the edge, so he goes right into that upper hole, right? While moving, with the dispersion that thing has. I mean, that just had to be the last second. I should have dove off that hill and went after him right there. I probably would have missed. 3,706 damage. The Progetto's going downhill. I think I also, in this case, could have pushed down and tried to mix it up with those guys. I wonder if he dies right here. I don't remember what happens. Unfortunately, I don't put any pressure. I don't put any pressure on. Charlemagne's still up here, but he has almost no hit points. There's a 274 Alpha that was up here with us. Don't know where that guy went. There's a guy on cap. There we go. Missed that shot. Tried to get into the side of it. And now I'm just in big trouble, right? I've got to get into the lower hole of that thing. He's going to out-DPM me. He's going to out-armor me for the most part. Try to get in here. Yep. So I do sneak one into the lower hole. Charlemagne dies to the CC-67. So I'm up to 4,088. No sense in seeing the bitter end. I die horribly right here. 2,280. So that's the turret games I wanted to show you right there. Then you can see once the hole gets into play, you can start getting shredded. Obviously, the side of your tank is pretty much always going to get pinned. As the 274 Alpha sees his opportunity and gets in there. Let's wrap this up. So what's the bottom line on this? The Walmart Chieftain Tier 9 heavy tank. Well, it's easily a top 10 Tier 9 heavy tank. It's probably most likely a top 5. Will it unseat the concept? I don't think so, but it's got most of the sauce that you need for Tier 9, or for the meta, I guess, right now with the hold down capability of the turret. It is not without its weaknesses and issues on the turret, and the hull is pretty garbage. The gun handling is okay, but not great. So all those little things around the edge, the speed's good, but not great, kind of make it, kind of limit it in terms of being able to beat the Concept 1B. But we're talking about taking on the champ, right? Not the fact that it's just playing better than a good number of the other tanks at Tier 9, if not most of the other tanks at Tier 9. So I don't think it's going to be auto win for you. It's probably not Chieftain levels. Plus it sees 10s, so that always keeps Tier 9s down anyway, because they do end up fighting 10s. But I think tier for tier, the Tier 10 Chieftain is better tier for tier, but this is not far off. It is a top tier, probably top 5, definitely top 10 heavy tank. As far as how you get it, there's, you know, the whole engineer's gate and thing going on. You can essentially buy your way to it. Depending on how many of those other premiums you have a pretty good chance of getting it. But if you don't have many of those other premiums, not a great chance of getting it without spending a whole bunch of money or winning a bunch in the event and getting engineer's keys and all that good stuff. So we're not going to get into the ups and downs of all that. Just this tank is a solid Tier 9, and it's a premium, right? It's getting you credits and bonds, which is what the Tier 9 premiums are doing at this point. All of them, I think, other than the reward tanks. So overall, pretty solid heavy tank. Let me know what you think down below for the Walmart Chieftain prototype. That is all I've got. We will see ya.